You need money, not next month, not when your business picks up, not when the economy turns around, right now. And I'm about to teach you something that sounds completely insane, a spiritual protocol so ancient, so counterintuitive, that when I first heard it, I laughed in my uncle's face. But before I show you this protocol, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to this channel right now, because what I'm about to share is not a motivational speech. It's not inspiration. This is part of a complete system I'm teaching, week after week. And if you're not subscribed, you're going to miss the pieces that come next. We're building an army of people who refuse to live in financial terror, people who understand that spiritual law is as real as gravity. Click that subscribe button, I'll wait. Good. Now, here's what I didn't know when my uncle first told me this. There exists a mechanism in the spiritual economy that activates only in moments of extreme financial terror. Not comfort, not stability, terror. The kind of terror where you wake up at 3 a.m. with your heart pounding because you know that in 72 hours the eviction notice goes on your door. The kind where you've already called your landlord twice, your voice shaking, begging for just one more week. The kind where your children ask why you look so worried, and you force a smile that feels like it might crack your face in half. I know that terror intimately. Let me take you back. 7 years ago, my small retail business had been struggling for months. The neighborhood changed, foot traffic dried up, online competition crushed us. I had depleted every reserve, maxed every card, borrowed from everyone who would still answer my calls. And then came the letter. Notice to vacate. 45 days, $8,700 in back rent plus late fees. Total owed, $9,200. I had $340 in my business account. My personal account was overdrawn. I sat in my empty store that evening after closing, just staring at that letter. The fluorescent lights humming above me, that horrible industrial buzz that makes everything feel even more hopeless. The silence pressing down like a physical weight. And I felt something I had never felt before in my entire life. Cosmic abandonment. Like I had been erased from God's ledger. Like every prayer I'd ever said had been filed away under return to sender, addressee unknown. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't hold my coffee cup. I remember staring at my daughter's school photo on my desk. She was 7, gap-toothed smile, holding up a drawing she'd made for me and thinking, she's going to find out her father is a failure. Not vague fear, that specific thought, that crushing, specific shame. Have you ever felt that? That specific flavor of financial terror where it's not just about money anymore. It's about your worth as a human being, your ability to protect what matters, your basic competence at existing in this world. Pause right here. I need you to do something before we go further. Write this in the comments. The number that haunts me is one, and fill in that blank. The exact dollar amount that keeps you awake. The bill, the debt, the payment. Name it. Because you cannot defeat an enemy you refuse to identify. Now, while you're writing that, let me tell you something that will sound like the ramblings of a desperate man. The solution to your immediate financial crisis is not what you think it is. It is not cutting expenses. It is not liquidating assets. There is not borrowing from family, or maxing another card, or starting a GoFundMe or selling your belongings. Those are all logical responses, reasonable responses, human responses, and they will not solve your problem. Because your problem is not actually financial. Your problem is spiritual. Your problem is that you have become a closed system. You have clenched your fist so tightly around what little you have left that you have cut off the flow. Let me be very clear about what I'm saying. The reason you don't have money right now is not because money doesn't exist. It's not because the economy is bad or because you made poor decisions or because you're unlucky or because God has abandoned you. It's because you have erected a dam in the middle of a river. And the river is still flowing. It flows right now. It has always flowed. It will always flow. But you cannot access it because you have built a barrier out of fear, out of scarcity thinking, out of the worship of a false god called security. I know how this sounds. It sounds like spiritual bypassing. It sounds like toxic positivity. It sounds like one more guru selling you dream dust while you're drowning. But hear me, I am not a guru. I am not a motivational speaker. I am not here to sell you a course on manifestation or positive thinking or the law of attraction. I am a rabbi. I teach Torah. And what I am about to share with you is not my opinion. It is not my philosophy. It is not my interpretation. It is law, spiritual law, as fixed and testable as gravity, as real as the equation that keeps the planets in orbit. And this law has a name. In Hebrew, we call it tzedakah. Now, if you've heard that word before, you probably think it means charity. You probably think it means being nice and generous and helping the less fortunate when you can afford to. Wrong. Completely, fundamentally, dangerously wrong. Tzedakah does not come from the Hebrew word for charity or kindness or benevolence. It comes from the word tzedek, which means justice, righteousness, balance, the restoration of divine order. This is not optional. This is not a suggestion. This is not be generous if you feel like it. This is cosmic law. Let me break this down in a way that will make sense to your logical mind, because I know your logical mind is screaming right now. It's saying, Rabbi, I'm broke, I can't pay my rent, and you're talking about giving money away? Are you insane? Yes, from a logical standpoint, I am. Completely insane. But logic does not govern the spiritual economy. Faith does, trust does, obedience does. Here's the mechanism. In the spiritual realm, resources flow like water. They flow from the source, Hashem, the Infinite One, down through channels, through vessels, through people, through businesses, through economies. The flow is constant. The flow is abundant. The flow never stops. But the flow requires movement. It requires channels, not containers. It requires rivers, not ponds. A pond receives water but doesn't release it. It becomes stagnant. It becomes breeding ground for disease and death. A river receives and releases simultaneously. It stays fresh. It stays alive. It sustains entire ecosystems. Right now, in your financial crisis, you have become a pond. You are clutching. You are hoarding. You are in preservation mode. And the spiritual economy has responded exactly as it must. It has stopped flowing through you because you have stopped being a channel. This is not punishment. This is physics, spiritual physics. And the solution is equally mechanical. You must force yourself back into flow. You must dynamite the dam. You must, despite every screaming instinct of self-preservation, give. My uncle taught me this, not in a classroom, not from a book. He taught me this at 2 a.m. in his kitchen after his third bankruptcy. He was a builder, a good man, an honest man. But 3 times in his life he lost everything. 3 times he had to start over from absolute zero. Twice he came back, but the 3rd time broke him differently. He sat across from me that night, his hands shaking around a glass of cold tea, and he said, Yosef, I'm going to tell you something that saved my father in Warsaw, that saved me in 87 and 98, and that I forgot this time. And forgetting it is why I'm here now in this kitchen with nothing. He leaned forward. There is a door that only opens during catastrophe, but it doesn't open with a key. It doesn't open with strategy. It doesn't open with hard work or clever planning or positive thinking. It opens with an act so illogical, so counterintuitive, so against every survival instinct you possess, that only someone drowning would attempt it. I stared at him. What act? You give away exactly what you need most. I laughed. I actually laughed. Uncle, that's crazy. He didn't laugh. I know. That's why it works. Because giving when you have abundance proves nothing. Giving when you're comfortable costs you nothing. But giving when you have nothing left, when every rational voice in your head is screaming stop, that's when you prove you understand something deeper than economics. That's when you prove you understand covenant. Covenant. Not contract, covenant. In a contract, both parties have equal standing and equal power. In a covenant, there is a stronger party and a weaker party, and the stronger party commits to protect and provide for the weaker party in exchange for trust and obedience. You are in covenant with the divine, not contract, covenant. And in covenant, you don't negotiate, you don't hedge your bets, you don't keep a backup plan. You trust, and then you obey. Even when, especially when, obedience looks like suicide. That night in my empty store 7 years ago, staring at that eviction notice, I remembered my uncle's words, and I did something that still makes my hands sweat to describe. I opened my business ledger. I looked at that number, $9,200 needed, and I calculated 10%, $920. Then I went online, and I found an organization that provided emergency funds for widows with children who were facing eviction. Women in my exact situation, except with less capacity to fight back, with no business to rebuild, with no options at all. And I transferred every remaining dollar in my business account, $340, plus I took a cash advance on the one credit card that still worked, $580, and I gave the full $920 to that fund. Then I sat back in my chair, and I spoke out loud, not in my head, out loud. Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, I have done what you commanded. I have given tzedakah, not from my surplus, from my lack, not from my comfort, from my terror. I have proven that I trust you more than I trust this money. Now I am asking you to fulfill your side of the covenant. Send provision, not for my glory, for your name's sake, because I am your servant, and you do not abandon your servants. Amen. Then I went home. I didn't sleep. I paced. I prayed. I argued with God. I second-guessed myself about 10,000 times. I felt calm for exactly 3 minutes, then panic for the next hour, then calm again, then panic, like waves. The next morning I opened the store. No customers. I checked my email. Nothing. I checked my bank account. Overdrawn by $600 now because of the cash advance fee. And then, at 11:47 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something, I don't know what, intuition, desperation, the hand of God, made me pick up. Hello, is this Yosef? Yes. My name is Rebecca Feldman. I'm a commercial real estate attorney. I represent a client who has been looking to acquire a retail location in your exact neighborhood for the past 8 months. We've had our eye on your building. Your landlord mentioned you might be vacating soon. My client would like to make you an offer. My heart stopped. An offer for what? We'd like to buy out your lease. We'll pay your back rent, your penalties, and give you $15,000 for early termination and assignment of your lease to us. We can have the paperwork ready by end of day tomorrow and the funds in your landlord's account by Thursday. I couldn't speak. The office went silent. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I could hear the traffic outside. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the back room. Everything became hyper-real, like the world had been turned up to maximum volume. She continued, I know this is sudden, but we've been authorized to move. Quickly. Are you interested? I managed to say yes. We hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, my hands still shaking, but for a completely different reason now. 47 hours after I gave away the last money I had in the world, I had more than double what I needed, not just to survive, to walk away clean and start over. That was 7 years ago. I've never forgotten it, and I've never stopped testing this law since then. Every time I face crisis, and I've faced several, I run the same protocol, and it works. Every single time, not because I'm special, not because I'm more righteous than you, not because God likes me better, but because I understand something that most people refuse to accept. You cannot defeat a spiritual problem with a physical solution. Your immediate financial crisis is not about money. It's about flow. It's about what you worship. It's about whether you believe that the source of all provision is actually real or just a nice idea you mention on holidays. Now, before I teach you the protocol, I need to tell you about the time it didn't work. 3 years ago, a man came to me after watching one of my teachings. He was facing foreclosure, $43,000 short on his mortgage. Bank scheduled the auction in 2 weeks. He emailed me, told me he was going to run the protocol. He calculated his 10%, $4,300. He found an organization. He gave the money. He said the prayer. He waited. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, nothing. Day 3, 4, 5, 6, nothing. Day 7, he emailed me, furious. Rabbi, you lied to me. This is fake. This is manipulative spiritual garbage. I gave money I couldn't afford to give, and now I'm even more broke, and I look like a fool. I called him. I asked him one question. When you gave that money, were you trusting God or were you testing God? Silence on the other end. Long silence. Then he admitted, I wanted to prove you wrong. I've been burned by religious people my whole life. I gave the money thinking, let's see if this rabbi's full of it like the rest of them. I was running an experiment. That's not faith, that's a science experiment. That's you playing God while pretending to trust God. You cannot manipulate the divine. You cannot treat covenant like a vending machine where you put in your coins and expect your product to drop. The protocol works when you surrender control, not when you're trying to maintain control through spiritual loopholes. I told him, you didn't give tzedakah, you gave a bribe. You tried to buy a result while keeping yourself in the position of judge. That's not how this works. He hung up on me. I never heard from him again. I tell you this because I need you to understand. This is not magic. This is not a trick. This is not a cheat code for the universe. This is covenant. And covenant requires both parties to show up honestly. If you're going to run this protocol, and I'm going to teach it to you in a moment, you must run it from a place of genuine surrender, not testing, not let's see if this works. Surrender. Now I'm going to teach you the protocol, the exact steps, but before I do, you need to understand one more thing. This will feel insane. Your entire nervous system will rebel. Every fiber of your being will scream at you to stop. That voice has a name in our tradition, the Yetzer Hara, the inclination towards self-destruction disguised as self-preservation. It will tell you, this is stupid, you can't afford this, you need every penny. What if it doesn't work? What if you give this money away and nothing happens, and then you're even more broke and you look like a fool? That voice is not logic. That voice is not wisdom. That voice is not caution. That voice is the spiritual force that wants to keep you trapped in scarcity forever. It is the enemy, and you must learn to recognize it and disobey it. Stop the video right now. I'm serious. Pause. Because if you keep watching but you're not going to actually do this, you're wasting your time. This isn't entertainment. This isn't inspiration porn. This is a protocol. If you're not going to run it, close this video and go watch cat videos. But if you're staying, if you're really staying, then write in the comments right now, I commit to the protocol. Make it real. Make it public. Because a commitment in your head is a fantasy. A commitment in writing, in public, where people can see it, that's when it becomes real. Go ahead, I'll wait. Good. Now let me tell you about my father's sister, my Aunt Devorah. This woman survived things I won't even describe here. She came to this country in 1951 with 2 children and a suitcase. Her husband had died 3 months before they left. She had $40 to her name. She got work cleaning houses. Brutal work. 6 houses a day, 6 days a week. She told me once that her knees never stopped hurting after the first year. The chemicals made her hands crack and bleed. She would wrap them in cloth at night and try to sleep, but the pain would wake her up every few hours. But she fed her children. She kept a roof over their heads. She did what had to be done. 2 years into this life, she got sick. Pneumonia. In those days, before modern antibiotics were common, pneumonia could kill you. She was in the hospital for 11 days, couldn't work. Bills piled up. The landlord threatened eviction. On the day she got out of the hospital, still weak, still coughing so hard she could barely speak, she got a bill for the hospital stay, $340. She had $85 in her drawer at home. Her neighbor, another immigrant woman, told her about a fund that was collecting money to bring over a family of orphans from a displaced persons camp. 5 children, no parents, no way to get to America. My aunt took $850, exactly 10% of what she had, and she walked 6 blocks to the synagogue, her lungs burning with every step, and she put it in that fund. Then she walked the 6 blocks home, went into her tiny kitchen, opened the window, looked up at the sky and said in Yiddish, "Gott in you, I did my part. Now you do yours, not for me, for these children who depend on me. I'm trusting you because I have no other choice. Amen." 3 days later, one of the women whose house she used to clean called her, said her sister was getting married and needed someone to help organize the wedding. Not cleaning, organizing, coordinating vendors, managing setup, running the day. 2 weeks of work. Payment, $500 up front. My aunt paid the hospital bill, paid the rent, bought food and still had money left over. She told me this story when I was 14. I remember exactly where we were sitting. Her kitchen table, yellow tablecloth with tiny flowers, the smell of chicken soup on the stove. I asked her, "But Aunt Devorah, what if it hadn't worked? What if nobody called?" She looked at me with eyes that had seen more suffering than I could imagine, eyes that had watched her husband die, eyes that had scrubbed other people's floors until her hands bled. And she said, "Then I would have been broken faithful instead of broken afraid, and I would have died knowing I tried to be a partner with Hashem instead of his enemy, a partner with God, not his accountant, not his financial advisor, his partner. That's what tzedakah makes you. That's what this protocol activates. You stop being a client trying to manage your own portfolio, and you become a partner in the divine distribution system. So here's how you do it. Here's the actual protocol. Write this down. Memorize it. Because the next time terror comes, and it will come, you need to know exactly what to do. Step 1. Name the number. You must know the exact amount you need. Not a lot, not enough to get by. The exact number. If you need $3,400, you say $3,400. If you need $12,750, you say $12,750. Precision matters. Vagueness is the language of fear. Precision is the language of faith. Speak it out loud. Write it down. Show God you're not hiding. I need exactly $1,000 by $1,000. Date. Matters too. This isn't someday. This is urgent. Name the deadline. Step 2. Calculate the 10th. Take that number and divide by 10. That's your activation amount. That's the dynamite that blows open the channel. If you need $5,000, your activation is $500. If you need $1,800, your activation is $180. This is not negotiable, not 5%, not whatever you can afford, 10%. This is the biblical standard. This is the Torah standard. This is what Abraham gave Melchizedek. This is what Jacob vowed at Bethel. This is the covenant measurement. Step 3. Give it to a channel, not a pond. This is critical. You cannot give this money to just anything and expect it to work. You cannot give it to a big impersonal organization where your $180 becomes line item 4,629 on a spreadsheet. You must give to something that moves, something that empowers, something that takes what you give and immediately transforms it into action that helps someone else stand up. Emergency funds for people facing eviction. Microloans for single mothers trying to start businesses. Food programs that don't just hand out meals, but teach nutrition and cooking. Education funds for children whose families can't afford school supplies. Your money must go toward dignity, not dependency. Toward empowerment, not pity. Because that's what you're asking for yourself. Not a handout, but a hand up. Not charity, but partnership. Step 4. Speak the activation. This is where most people fail. They give the money and then they just wait, passively, hoping, wishing. No, you must speak, out loud. You must activate the covenant verbally. This is not magic. This is protocol. This is how spiritual technology works. Words have power. Spoken words have more power. Declared words in faith have the most power. Here's what you say. Adapt it to your own language, your own heart. But keep the structure. Creator of all provision, I have given what you commanded. Not from surplus, but from need. Not from comfort, but from trust. I have shown you that I believe you are real. Now I am asking you to prove that you keep covenant. Send what I need, not for my glory, but for your name. Because you said that those who give tzedakah will not lack, and your word does not return empty. I trust you. I am your partner. Amen. Then you wait. But you don't wait passively. You wait like a soldier who called for air support and knows it's coming. You wait like someone who filed the paperwork correctly and knows the system will respond. You wait in active expectation, not passive hope. And here's what happens. This is what I've seen every single time. First, you'll feel a strange calm. The panic will lift. Not completely, but enough that you can breathe. It's like handing a 200-pound weight to someone stronger than you. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. You didn't realize how tightly you were holding everything until you let go. Then, within 72 hours, sometimes sooner, sometimes the full 3 days, provision will come. It will not come from where you expected. It will not look like what you imagined. But it will come, and it will be sufficient. Often it will be more than sufficient. Why? Because God doesn't do minimums. God doesn't cut corners. When you prove you trust Him with your crisis, He proves He's trustworthy with His abundance. But understand this. The protocol doesn't work if you're testing God. It doesn't work if you're playing games. Let me try this and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, I'll know it's fake. That's not faith, that's entertainment. That's putting God on trial. And He doesn't perform for skeptics running experiments. This works when you're drowning and you grab the rope because you have no other option. This works when you're all in. This works when you burn the boats. Now I need you to understand something that most spiritual teachers will never tell you because it's too confrontational, too demanding, too uncomfortable. This protocol has a cost. The cost is not the money. Money is just the instrument. The cost is much deeper than that. The cost is your illusion of control. The cost is your belief that you can manage this yourself. The cost is your secret conviction that if you just think harder, plan better, work smarter, you can solve this crisis without needing to trust anyone, including God. That belief is a lie, and it's killing you. Every day you hold on to that lie, you stay trapped in the cycle. You scramble, you panic, you exhaust yourself, you collapse, you get back up and scramble again. And nothing fundamentally changes because you're trying to solve a spiritual problem with human effort. Human effort has its place. I'm not telling you to sit on your couch and wait for money to fall from the sky while you do nothing. You work, you plan, you strategize, you take every practical action available to you. But when you've done all that and you're still short, when the math doesn't math, that's when you must admit you've reached the limit of what human effort can accomplish. That's when you must do what terrifies you most. Surrender control and activate the covenant. So here's what I'm asking you to do right now, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, right now. If you are in immediate financial crisis, if there is a number that haunts you, if there is a deadline approaching, if you have that cold dread in your stomach, you have a decision to make. You can continue doing what you've been doing. You can keep trying to logic your way out. You can keep reducing expenses and making phone calls and negotiating payment plans and hoping something breaks your way. Or you can run the protocol. You already know what the first option produces. You're living it. The second option is unknown. It requires you to do something that feels insane. But insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So which option is actually insane? Let me walk you through this one more time, slower, so there's no confusion. Tonight, before you go to sleep, you're going to do this. Get a piece of paper and a pen, not your phone, not a computer. Paper, pen, physical objects. This matters. At the top of the page, write, "My financial crisis." Below that, write the exact amount you need and the exact date you need it by. Be specific. I need $4,200 by January 18th to cover rent and avoid eviction. I need $850 by January 15th to keep the power on and feed my children. Whatever it is, name it. Below that, calculate 10% of that number. Write it down. My activation amount is $420. My activation amount is $85. Now here's where the rubber meets the road. Here's where your faith becomes action. You're going to find that money. I don't care how. If you have it in an account somewhere, you take it out. If you don't have it, you find a way to get it. You borrow it. You sell something. You take a cash advance. You ask someone to loan it to you for 48 hours. And then you're going to give it away. You're going to research and find an organization or a person who is doing work that empowers others. Not entertainment. Not vague good causes. Empowerment. People being lifted up, given tools, given dignity, given a way forward. Maybe it's a local fund that helps women escape domestic violence and start over. Maybe it's a micro-loan program for refugees starting businesses. Maybe it's an education fund for children in underserved communities. Maybe it's an organization that provides job, training and placement for formerly incarcerated people trying to rebuild their lives. Find something that resonates with what you're asking for yourself. A chance, a way forward, dignity, partnership, not pity. And you give your activation amount to that work. You transfer it. You mail a check, you hand them cash, whatever method works, but you must complete the action. The money must leave your possession and enter theirs. And then, this is not optional, you speak the activation out loud. You can use the words I gave you earlier, or you can use your own words, but the structure must include these elements. 1. Acknowledgement that you gave from need, not surplus. 2. Declaration that you trust the source of provision more than you trust the money. 3. Request for provision based on covenant, not as a favor. 4. Commitment that you're doing this for more than just yourself, for your family, for your purpose, for the glory of the one who provides. Speak it with your mouth, not in your head, out loud. Words in the physical realm activate spiritual realities. This is Torah. This is how covenant works. And then you wait. You wait in active expectation. You keep doing what you need to do, making calls, sending emails, looking for work, whatever practical steps remain, but you wait knowing you've done the part that only you could do. You've proved you trust. Now it's time for provision to prove itself. Within 3 days, 72 hours, you will see movement. I can't tell you what it will look like. It won't be what you expect, it never is, but it will come. And when it comes, you will know beyond any doubt that you didn't conjure it. You didn't manifest it. You didn't attract it with positive thinking. You activated a law that existed before you were born and will exist after you die. You became a channel instead of a closed system. You partnered with the infinite instead of trying to hoard the finite. Now here's what I need you to do in the next 24 hours, not think about. Do. My email address is in the description below this video. I want you to send me an email with 3 things. 1, the exact number you need. 2, the exact date you need it by. 3, the organization you're giving your 10% to. Don't tell me you already gave it. Tell me where you're going to give it. Make a commitment. Put it in writing. To me, to God, to yourself. Because a commitment in your head is a wish. A commitment in writing is a contract. And when you send that email, you're activating something beyond yourself. You're creating accountability. You're making it real. I read every email. I pray over everyone. You're not alone in this. Now, before you close this video and go back to your life, I need you to do something for me. Actually, not for me, for yourself. Go down to the comments right now and write these exact words. I am a channel for abundance. Not, I want to be. Not, I hope to be. I am. Present tense. Declaration. Identity. Because here's what happens. When you declare something publicly, you step into it. You stop being the person who wishes things were different, and you become the person who's making things different. You stop being a pond, and you become a river. Say it. Write it. Declare it. I am a channel for abundance. And here's what I'm going to tell you next week. And this is critical, so listen carefully. Next week, I'm going to teach you about the second protocol. Because here's what nobody tells you. The first provision test is just the beginning. There's a second test that comes 30 days later. Most people fail it. They pass the first test, money comes, and then they fail the second test, and they lose everything again. I'm going to show you exactly what that second test is and how to pass it. But you can only understand the second test after you've run the first protocol. So run it this week, then come back next week prepared. Because this isn't just about getting through one crisis. This is about restructuring your entire relationship with provision so that you never live in scarcity consciousness again. This is about building financial architecture that operates in permanent flow. But you have to do this part first. You have to run the protocol. You have to prove to yourself that spiritual law is real. Because everything I'm going to teach you after this builds on that foundation. And if you don't have the foundation, the architecture will collapse. So here's my final word to you. You're at a crossroads. One path is familiar. It's the path of human effort without divine partnership. It's exhausting, it's terrifying, and it leads exactly where you are right now. The other path is unknown. It requires trust. It requires action that looks insane. It requires you to give away what you cannot afford to give. But it leads to freedom. It leads to flow. It leads to becoming the kind of person who never panics when crisis comes because you know the protocol. You know the laws. You know how to activate provision. Choose, not tomorrow, today. And when you make the choice to trust, when you run the protocol, when you prove to yourself that this is real, come back and tell me what happened. Send me that email. Share your testimony in the comments. Not for my benefit. For the next person who's drowning and needs to know this isn't theory. This is reality. May the source of all blessing open the channels of heaven over your life. May provision flow to you from directions you cannot imagine. May you become a river that brings life everywhere you go. May you never know scarcity again. May your children and your children's children live in abundance because you made the decision today to trust when trust seemed impossible. And may you walk in the confidence that comes from knowing you are not alone. You are in covenant. You are partnered with the infinite. And the infinite does not abandon his partners. Amen. Shalom, my friend. Until next time.